Hello and welcome to Dub's podcast Connection Loop. I'm really excited today because there's something that we have done for the last, I think it's been 3 years now. We've recorded over 300 podcasts and it's transformed me as a human being. I am a completely different person now that I have gone through the experience of having a podcast. And what I'm really psyched about today is that I have an expert to explain how you can start your own podcast. Today I have with me Anne Scottlin, who's based in Northern California at the moment, but she's a global traveler. She's going to get into it. We're going to start with her origin story, and then she's going to explain to us how we can have a world-class podcast. So let's get into this, folks. And I would love to get a short bio from you and just kind of tell us how you got here. What was the journey?
Okay, how short, Ruben?
You know what? Start with a couple of minutes, and I'm probably going to ask a lot more questions because I'm really curious.
Okay, so I will give you the 2-minute version, and then you can ask questions based on that. That's interesting to you. So,
well, this is the first lesson: how to speak with brevity.
Yeah, right, right, exactly. No, this is lesson number 1. So then you have things you can ask, and just thanks, Ruben, for letting me be here with you and your viewers today. This is really exciting. I love your show, and super excited to get this message out to your people and yours to mine. So this is going to be really a great opportunity. So I guess what most people don't know about me, they usually say, "Oh, you're probably a cheerleader in high school." I'm like, no. I actually grew up basically in a right-wing cult environment, Christian cult environment, where we had everything regulated to the max, from food, entertainment, no TV, no radio, long dresses, no fiction, a lot of foods limited. I was homeschooled till I was 15 and a half before I even went to a school. And after that, I was still in really conservative environments all the way through college, multiple degrees, married while I was in college, which was kind of, if you're going to go to college, you still better get married young, is sort of the principle of the thing. A bit of a sitting duck, had no idea what I was doing or anything about the real world, and ended up basically being in a relationship with someone that had a lot of sociopathic tendencies. And this person over time and years ended up having multiple lives in other states that I wasn't aware of. I had a divorce that almost killed me, especially around my faith. And so a lot of the ostracizing that was done because of divorce in that environment. From there, I went back to graduate school, and then later on to Hollywood, worked as an actress for a decade in Hollywood, which is where I really got excited about podcasting in the beginning, and started doing both, and then started doing more and more on the podcast front until that literally became my career and something that I absolutely love to do. And I absolutely love to see other people succeeding in theirs as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It really means a lot to me to be that honest, to be that vulnerable, to be that comfortable sharing personal stories about your life. And the fact of the matter is that most of us, we can't do that. It's really difficult because fear of judgment, fear of making the idea of having people feel negative things about us, feeling ideas of shame and embarrassment. And the first question that I have for you is, because I believe that that's your superpower. I can already tell your ability to connect with people because of your honesty, because of your vulnerability, makes you truly unique in who you are. And it's really special. And I already feel so much more connected to you because you have that superpower. How can you teach people to have the same skill? Like, how do you get to that level of honesty and being able to share personal stories, especially ones that are rooted in tragedy and pain and suffering?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, Ruben. And I love it because I don't think anyone's ever actually asked me that specifically before.
I just legitimately want to know because I want to learn for myself.
That's amazing. I think, first of all, I would preface that with saying it is a journey, and my journey was a very long one. What was interesting for me was the people I was hiding from wasn't the general public. It was from the people in my past, my background, my cultural and religious environment. When you only know one myopic piece of the world, those are the people whose judgment you live in fear of all the time. And even when I wasn't really practicing per se anymore, it was still like, oh God, they're going to find out. I'm going to get off Facebook because they're going to find out I'm divorced and they're going to judge me. I'm not going to talk to anyone from high school because they were all similar to me in their belief system. And I'm like, they're all going to think I'm a terrible person. And now I'm in Hollywood, which, my grandma, I'm sure, considers you live in LA, Sodom and Gomorrah and everything else you can possibly think of. And so I'm like, wow, I just kind of need to hide. But what I realized I was doing by hiding was I was keeping all the pain to myself, kind of like an evil treasure trove, where you just can become really self-obsessed and sorry for yourself. And what I wasn't doing was reaching out to help other people on this journey, on this planet we call life together, where they really need support and encouragement, to know that they have the same opportunity to let go and to step into their power. And there's literally no one who can stop you from doing that. If I can't be stopped, then you can't be stopped.
So you nailed it. It makes total sense to me. When we feel shame and embarrassment of things that we have gone through in our past, which effectively have crafted who we are as a human being and as an individual, if we root ourselves in our own embarrassment and feelings of negativity, we disconnect with the ability to do what our purpose is, which is to help others. So the path to helping others is to kind of let go about what you think about yourself and what other people think about you, so that you can just liberate yourself to go focus your energy on other people and helping people and serving that purpose. Is that really what this is?
No, it really is. And I'll just take it a step further. So bear with me, everybody.
Please.
There is a selfish motivation at the end. So I didn't know this when I first stepped into this, energy, and like, I really want to share and help. I want to help other people going through the same thing, and like a variety of issues that have gone on throughout my life. My life's been kind of an incredible, wild story. So, but as I started reaching out and helping people, and I'm going to insert this here, I had a mentor in college, a woman who told me, she's like, you know what, no matter what, whenever you feel like life bottoms out, when you've hit rock bottom and you're literally like, I don't even know if there's an up anymore, when you're at that point, always reach back, always reach out to others. Because if you're helping others, you're going to really help yourself. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a nice little saying. Well, it was true. So as soon as I started reaching out of myself, one of the first things I did was get involved in humanitarian programs like Amnesty International and others. I started reaching out, and instantly, first of all, my own life's plight was put in perspective, because there's so many other people with exponentially worse situations around the world. And also, I gave myself meaning again, because other people needed me. So instead of me sitting at home being like, the world is unfair, I'm a victim, not that we wasn't a victim, I'm just saying the world is unfair, I'm just going to live in this victim mode for the rest of my life because I have a right to, It's like, no, if you want to be healthy and happy, you give back. And in giving back, you receive so, so much more. So it really does come full circle. It's like the best form of therapy, not to downplay real therapy.
Yeah, no, that exactly. Well said. That makes a lot of sense to me. I understand it. I think that there is this fear that we all suffer from, and it's a very natural thing as a human being. It's just wired in us to say we need to focus on our self-preservation, and now we call it branding. But but in the olden days, it used to be, putting your best foot forward so that you can ultimately marry into a family and accumulate more wealth, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And the last thing that you would want to do is to show that you have these human things, flaws, or you made mistakes, or things that have happened in your life. But what a gift it is to actually turn those things into your stories. The thing that blows me away, there's this little secret that I've learned. which is that when you go to an event, you're a keynote speaker, you speak at great events, and you wow audiences with your stories because of this skill set, because of these superpowers that you have. And what's so interesting is that I realized at one point in my life, when I used to be terrified, when I was rooted in fear, when I didn't want to embarrass myself, I realized that the people that went on stage, they were just the most honest. And they would say, I'm so terrified to be here, or I used to be terrified of public speaking, or I went through this terrible experience. I lost everything. I lost everyone. I went to prison. And now they get to go and be a keynote speaker because they can be so honest. I mean, think about it. Martha Stewart and the Wolf of Wall Street and all these people that went through all these things, they just get to go on a stage, tell what they did and what happened to them and mistakes that they made. One of my favorite skateboarders is Christian Hosoi, who was really big in the 90s along with Tony Hawk. And he got arrested for crystal meth. I think he was selling or dealing or owning. I forgot what the story was. And now he's a pastor in like Huntington Beach or something. Wow. And he just, people like that have this ability to just be honest and say, I screwed up. I went through this. Something happened to me. I was a victim. And now I'm here and now I'm better. And everyone in the audience is like, oh my God, I wish I could be that honest. And I wish I could be that comfortable in my own skin. So thank you for that public service announcement.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because it's really weird how it really comes down to self-judgment in the end. It's really about how we feel about ourselves, us judging ourselves by the value we think in our fantasy imagination that other people are putting on us, the stories we make in our heads that are likely partially or not true at all. And one of the ways I found my confidence to share those stories was by getting emotionally naked. It's just a brutal way to say it, because that's what it feels like when you're in front of a whole bunch of people or whatever, and just doing it. In the first few times, it took a lot of willpower, but there was something unbelievably empowering about that. Like the ability, there was a shift where now instead of being a victim, I can be a leader for good. And I can share this. And by sharing this, I'm telling myself, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay enough to share it with these people. And I'm willing to be honest with me, because the person we hide from the most is me. So again, it's just full circle. The one brings the other.
Now here's the next question that I have. It's almost like this transformation journey that we have to go on, which is to understand our deepest fears, the things that embarrass us the most, the things that we're terrified to talk about publicly. That's like phase one, like self-realization or self-awareness. Okay. You mentioned therapy. With trauma comes the need for healing. And unfortunately, a lot of people do not go through that process of healing. And, that's unfortunate because you kind of live your life with that pain. And, maybe you find ways to hide it, but it's not going anywhere. Right. And then the second, right?
Yeah, it's not going to just disappear one morning.
Right. So, and then but the second phase is now how you actually say, okay, well, there's my story and I feel comfortable. I'm aware of it. I can communicate it. And now I'm going to go create a platform to interview other people and talk about their stories. Yeah. So now guide us through that a little bit.
Sure. So I think, whatever we do in our life, no matter how traditional or nonlinear your life and career have been, you have a gift that no one else has, which is literally your own personal human experience. So whether you're putting that into the branding of your business and that's how you make your living, or whether you have, a 9-to-5 job that you're perfectly content with, but you have like a passionate heart for other people on any level, from education, creativity. I don't care if it's engineering or farming or books or, like anything you could possibly think of, self-help, all of it. If you have a passion, I was just talking to a woman earlier this morning that helps, that works exclusively to reduce human trafficking in this country. And it's like, wow, when you find that voice, it is kind of your job. It is your opportunity to be generous in this world, by giving of the knowledge you have to making it a better place. And if you can educate others to understand and participate, you have better engineers, you have better humanitarians, you have better podcasters, it's your life making others' lives better and making your own better in the meantime.
There's a level of selflessness here. There's a level of service here. Zig Ziglar said it best, just to bring capitalism back to the table here just for a second here, since this is a business podcast. Zig Ziglar says, help 1 million people and you'll become a millionaire.
Oh, yes. No, it's absolutely true. And, and I work with like my own personal, that's like my personal story, but in my own personal business, I'm quite legitimately looking for people who know they're knowledgeable, they're proud of their work. Some of them are on a tiny bit of an ego trip, and that's totally fine and healthy. And I'm like, listen, let me help you become a world-class podcaster. Let's make your name at the top of the list in your industry. Let's literally make a thought leader with your podcast. Let's just do that. So, I mean, we all have egos. We all I put myself together today, this is just how life is. So, but if you have the opportunity to monetize while you're teaching and educating, I don't even care if it's a comedy show. I mean, I'm not besties with Howard Stern or anything, but I'm just saying he serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there is a purpose that he serves, and he knows that. And that's partly what empowers him, especially in recent years. So it's really like, what are you passionate about, and how can that help you help the world, but also honestly increase your bottom line, whether that's your primary business or whether it's a secondary income?
That makes sense to me. Here's kind of a specific question I have, because we're now starting to really talk about this idea of the fact that the goal here is to create a business podcast. You said the magic word, to monetize, okay? Because that's what's going to allow this to be sustainable. The only reason why I have been able to record over 300 episodes is because we make money from our podcast. We create content from it. We get referrals. We get word of mouth. People share our stuff. There's branding. There's education in it. We mine testimonials out of it. There's all sorts of repurposing things that happen as a result of the podcast, because long form content is like a waterfall into short form content. We always talk about that, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But what I think is really interesting here is that some business podcasts are absolute sleeping pills. Okay. And the more technical and the more industry specific and the more jargon and the more kind of serious and less vulnerable that the guest is being, chances are the less interesting it's going to be. And now with the advent of AI and, reading summarized content, we might be able to get technical information by just reading a page or chatting with an AI chatbot. So as human beings, that are trying to entertain people, because that's what a podcast is. It's about entertainment and education, but it's really about entertainment, right? Yeah. The question for you is this: how do we bring our business expertise, interview people that are specific to our industry, that make sense, that are maybe our prospects, and that have connections with people that are in our ideal client profile, but at the same time to become entertaining, to share stories, human stories, and then sprinkle the business stuff in there?
Yes. Okay. I love this. So how do we bring the stories into the podcast, whatever the topic is, but in particular right now for business? Well, I think in general, anyone who's already a writer, an actor, a producer, a musician, a creative, understands the value of presenting creatively. Now, I literally met on a plane to New York a few weeks ago a guy who, I'm not going to know the technical term for this. He literally, his entire career of 30 years, he spent writing user manuals for retail products.
Oh, interesting.
So, but I'm just saying,
I don't read instructions.
I don't either. It's terrible. So I'm just saying, if he and a bunch of other people that were into the same thing got together, they might actually be having fun and sharing some jokes. Just because the subject matter is dry to most of us doesn't mean you can't create community. So realize that it's about creating community. It's about entertaining. And also remember, you can have guests or no guests or both. If the deal with guesting is that your guest gets the floor most of the time.
Mm.
And as a brand, you're kind of providing this platform for your guests, which are adding value to all of your viewers and listeners. But a lot of hosts miss out on helping their listeners realize that really the whole reason they're here and providing this service is to monetize it through their own business. So a lot of times the host gets pushed back and they're like, but I'm doing this to monetize my business, not to just give everyone else a free ride. So it's just one of those considerations as far as like deciding whether you want a solo or a guest podcast or both. But I think telling stories is the genius. I don't care whether you're a speaker on stage, whether you're an author, whether you're just a school teacher, it doesn't matter. Not just a school teacher. My mother was a school teacher, so there is no just there, no just. It's about stories. Adults are really just big kids, honestly.
Yes.
We want to be entertained. We're bored out of our minds. And one of the beautiful things about podcasts, and I'm partial to video podcasts, also do my podcasts for audio, but is we crave this human connection, especially the more that we're isolated in our working from home and having, a lot of people having that benefit, that flexibility. You're having less and less human contact. And a lot of people are getting that from podcasts and video podcasts. So remember that you're doing it for them, not for you. That's what I've always told my clients. You might design your podcast essentially for you, but when you're in it, when you're speaking, when you're talking, when you're interviewing, think about the person on the other end. So like I'm thinking about how you're experiencing what I say. That allows me to connect. I'm thinking about how the audience might be experiencing what I say. So it's not about, how can I make Ann stand out, or how can I make Ann make the buck? Or it's more like when you're focused on the other person, just like networking or sales, when you're focused on the other person, there is a transformation that happens. Because instead of you trying to be interesting, you're trying to make them laugh. That's an example. You see what I'm trying to say? So it's less self-focused and it's more about them. What do they need today? And it's just a frame of mind, and it can take a little practice, but it can absolutely be done.
Yeah, that's so well said. I really appreciate that perspective. I think sometimes I meet folks that want to start a podcast, and it's an immediate lead generation thing. And the problem with this is that sometimes, and I've actually been invited to podcasts where it was a pure lead gen thing, and now I've become very, very discerning as a podcast guest. Whenever I do get invited to be on a show, I always make sure that this is not some like lead gen thing where the person is just trying to get me, like the pedestal effect where, hey, we want to give you this stage and stroke your ego, and the intention is to try to sell you on something.
Oh yeah, I hate that.
Right? Icky, right? So I think there's this idea where you have to be in it for the long play. And if you're trying to sell, what guidance can you give folks to avoid hard selling or becoming salesy to a podcast guest? How do we stay eloquent there?
You're providing value added to the audience. Again, it's not about you, it's about them. If you can convince them that you bring value, they're going to follow your links. They're going to look you up. They're going to send you a LinkedIn message, an email message. Now you have a contact that may turn into a soft lead, that may turn into a hot lead. So it's all about creating relationships. Now, if you want to create relationships, if you don't want to create a relationship with me, come straight up to my face and try to sell me something. All my switches go off. Done. Off. I have so much else to do with my time. Bye-bye.
Right.
But if I'm bringing value, and I think what is really key, what you said, is kind of in for the long haul. Not everybody, it doesn't have to mean 5 years before you are, finding monetizing. But in what I do with people, I'm literally trying to help them become a thought leader. It doesn't just happen overnight. Now, having a world-class quality podcast and all those things to get you in the market in the right place is tremendously helpful. But we are creating you as an authority in your field because you're there, you're consistent, your content has specific value, and you're using it to connect with your people. How many people, let me just say, have a podcast and they put it out on umpteen platforms and they never look at those platforms to see what comments they get? And if they did get comments, they never respond. And if they didn't respond, what the heck is it they're trying to accomplish? Because that's where you're getting your leads. So it's all about creating relationships. The bottom line is really your podcast is positioning you as an expert in your field and allowing you to create brand new relationships with other people who are interested in what you do. It's just networking.
I love that. Well, let's call it social listening, maybe.
I like that. Yes. Social listening. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Social listening breeds more community, and it breeds also more content.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, because every guest you have, it's always opening new ideas, giving you great ideas for other episodes, more podcasts. People's questions and comments give you more ideas for episodes, for guest recommendations. It's you saying, I am willing to start a new community. And I would like to be at the center of that community so I can connect you all. It's also about just the beauty of business and referring and networking. You may not buy my XYZ product, but if I send you a really hot client for you, do you think you're going to forget me?
Yeah.
Again, this is new business. I don't think hard sales, very few places that works anymore. The new business is all relationships. It's building relationships. And that will come around to you. I did a proposal for two people that had a podcast and a show that they were looking to elevate a couple weeks ago. And we went back and forth with proposals and whatnot. And in the end, after I'd put in a fair bit of time, they said, we just can't justify the budget right now, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool, cheers. I always there's a reason things happen. It might have made me, it might not have been good for me either. We don't know. I just figured I'll never hear from them again. And then yesterday I opened my email and a woman says, hi, Nikki and David just referred me to you and say, I'm trying to start a podcast and I'm an expert in my field. And they say, you're the person who can help me.
Bingo.
So don't underestimate. I mean, it's incredible. Selling isn't even as hard as it seems. It's just about relationships. And let me clarify that for a moment, because I've been an actress. I've worked in LA. And I always heard the phrase, it's always about relationships. And sometimes that seemed impossible as an actress, because how do you get introduced to the right people? And it's just seems like this never ending, or the music industry. How do you get these crazy key relationships? Well, it starts with the really basic ones. It starts with the people who I interact with on my social media platforms as an influencer. It starts with the people on my podcast. Now I may have shifted in who those connections are I want to meet. But it's really the same thing. It's the same concept. And just you start small and you can see big results from that right off the bat, really.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I've heard many times is that people say, I don't have time to network. I don't have time to build relationships outside of the circle of the people that I already work with, until they need something, which is a job or an investor or a business partner.
No, my worst thing. I hate this so much.
Right. And, someone once said this to me, and it was probably one of the funniest things that I ever heard, but they said, desperation smells so terrible. It is the most rancid, deterring, nasty smell that is in existence.
Oh, yeah. Ask casting directors.
Right? There you go. Another LA reference. Absolutely. And salespeople, someone looking for investors, someone looking for podcast guests that they all eventually want to sell to. If you have that reek of desperation or even something self-centered, people are going to smell it. Here's my question for you. How do we find the balance in our lives to say, I'm comfortable with my current lead gen system in my business that gets me business so I can have sales today, but now I'm going to go invest in something long-term for my brand with the podcast, my sort of social profile. How do I find that balance?
So just to restate the question, so how do you find the balance between what you're putting out in the social profile and not being too needy, greedy?
I want to have sales overnight. I don't want to slow down my sales.
Gotcha.
So I want to have a lead gen system, but then I also want to make the investment into my podcast, into my brand. And I'm going to go on the long haul knowing that that's going to give me the most gifts. How do I find my balance in that?
I mean, I'm not trying to be snide here, but it's called a business plan.
Boom.
And I think
Great.
that a lot of people who do things like start podcasts or do their first self-published book or whatever that is, they just do it. They throw it out there, they start it, and it's not really strategic. They have this fuzzy end in sight, which is like, hopefully lots of people will like it. Many people haven't niched out enough, which I hate that word. I hate the whole business of niching out, but it just has to be reframed and made fun and accessible. That's all. And it can absolutely be that. But it's a business plan. It's like you have your near term, midterm, and long term goals. And it's all part of a strategy. You have dates, you have goals, you work toward it. You talk to a professional who understands what you're trying to create and says, how likely is it that I can accomplish XYZ in 6 months, in 1 year? And then you reverse engineer the program. And so it really comes down to you in the end. If you've reversed, I was a coach for a long time as well in business. If you reverse engineer it and you know what steps you're supposed to take basically every single day, and it's entirely up to you how fast or slow your business grows.
I think that's a really important note here. Let's just reiterate what you just said, because that's so, so powerful. And your podcast needs to have a business plan. And I want to say this one thing, that when I started this podcast, Connection Loop, 300 episodes ago, I did not have a business plan. I said, I just want to do it because it sounds fun and I want to make relationships and create content. And it took years to go and actually develop not just the business plan, but the overall content sharing and monetization plan. So this is a public service announcement for people. I would suggest, if you do have a budget, don't try to do this on your own. Get an expert, work with Anne, connect with her. I'm going to share her website, email, bunch of contact information. You should connect with Anne, because you got to work with an expert, because it could cost you 2 years, like it did me.
And a lot of money and a lot of bummed out experiences.
Yeah.
I always teach people like, okay, here's the worst case scenarios. Can we just go through that right now and get that done with? Okay, cool. Now let me show you the better and best case scenarios. All right. So we know the worst case scenario, because everyone kind of comes in again. We're referring back to sort of this figment fantasy imagination we have about some of the things we're going to create, and that everyone's absolutely going to love it. And then when it's not, 100% hit overnight, we're all sad and we feel lousy and we feel like a failure and we're not monetizing fast enough. And pretty soon the whole attitude tanks. And if your attitude tanks around your podcast, if your energy and your emotional attitude just doesn't have the sustainability, it's going to be over practically before it starts.
That's it.
So having really realistic goals, having support and help to get there is absolutely worth it. I did it the same way, Ruben. I swear I have done everything in my life the hard way. Why? I don't know. Probably because I was that little bratty girl who was like, do not tell me what to do. I know what I'm doing. So I've suffered throughout my whole life because of that personality trait. And I think it's taken till now where I'm like, please teach me. I really want to know.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
But because of that, you've also learned so many things not to do. And I love working with people to say, oh, don't make this mistake that I made. Like one of my favorite stories is I had a fairly high profile guest scheduled to come on a podcast early on years ago, and was really excited about it. We did the video interview. Everything went super well. We hit it off. It was flowed. It was great. And then they said goodbye. And then I looked down and I'd never hit the record button.
Oh, no.
And this was not someone that would be easy to reschedule. Plus, I was mortified. And so that's one of those things where right off the bat, some people do need it and some people don't. But some people need just a very basic form of a producer. Some people love producing themselves. You're really good at producing yourself, but not everyone has that talent, that gift, that training to do it. So it's just those little things that if you didn't know, and it wasn't going to cost you that much more to have one and to have had someone hit record and double check everything, then that's just an example of how things can go terribly wrong by accident. It's not intentional. It's just two minds are better than one sometimes.
Yeah, we've all made that mistake. I've done that so many times. My goodness. It's so easy. There's so much to manage here. The mic and the camera and the guest. And do I ask the right questions? And is there like a booger hanging off the edge of my nose? Like, what? What?
No, I know. Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like we need a checklist. Like, here's a checklist of everything that you have to do, high level technical stuff, and just make sure you address all those items.
Legitimately, I have a checklist that I gave to my producer, who runs through it with me and my guests every single time I tape.
Beautiful.
Because one of my objectives is to have really high quality productions as much as physically possible. So because of that, there's a lot of sound testing, light testing. You know, are your notifications off? Have you turned off any big programs that are running on your computer that might glitch you up? Are you connected to an Ethernet instead of just relying on what might be a faulty wireless in your personal home? We go through this list every single week. And last week, she forgot to ask me a question, and she's amazing, but life happens to all of us. And it was just like, are all the fans off? Silly, like obvious seeming question. And we both forgot about that one. And I didn't have the checklist in front of me. And so we did the show. I could not get my lighting right the whole show. I'm like, what is changed? Nothing is it my, like, what is different? I do not understand. Well, when I was all done, I realized that the fan switch also controls my yellow overhead lights.
Oh.
So it's just little nitty gritty things. You're like, am I just as pale or what? Right? It's these little things that when you really do want to go to the next level, if that's what's important to your message or your business, is not just like, let's hang out and have fun and literally like, let's wear t-shirts and just have a blast and tell jokes. And like, we're just going to chill. And this is the whole point. But if you have a kind of message that is critical to your audience, either to make you a thought leader in your field, or it's a message, whether that's humanitarian or political, academic, whatever that might be, if you want them to really take you seriously, that's when you often will say, you know, I'm just going to up it a little bit. Like, what's the point in doing it wrong and feeling like a failure when I could do it right and really grow and see the results as, you know, soon?
Well, that's all in the business plan, which you articulated so well. I mean, these are really important decisions to make in the beginning. What is a podcast called? What is the vibe? What's the format? You know, what kind of questions do you ask? You know, do you want an in-person podcast, or do you want it to be more like this? You know, we use StreamYard. We love StreamYard. We have a partnership. Yeah, we have a partnership with StreamYard, dub.com/StreamYard. That's a sign-up link if you want to get a discount.
Did you see the thumbs up right there?
Oh, yeah, that actually, okay, so let's just take a break here.
No.
Yeah.
I'm like, I said, StreamYard heard you, and they are telling you thumbs up for StreamYard. No, that's amazing. I love it. I often wondered how that happened.
Don't show this one to your family back home, but this one actually gives a really cool effect.
Okay. Will it do it for me? Yeah, no, I think it's only you. You're on the producing side, but that's amazing.
Yeah, that should work. These are actually, so folks, if you're just listening, what we're actually having fun with is these are the new Apple reactions that are available on any Mac operating system, as long as you are using the latest version of the software. I think if you're on Sonoma or beyond, like, I think I'll give you the specific number in a moment, but if you've updated, you are going to get these really cool reactions. You can do a heart, which gives heart emojis. You can do is this with Satan sign, excited sign, rock and roll?
Yeah, rock and roll or
rock and roll, right? What is that? And then there's a couple of others that I there's the thumbs down.
Oh yeah, thumbs down. Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun to have all these AI things, and it makes podcasting fun. And I just wanted to say that
totally.
Fun. Part of what the point is in your podcast is having fun and helping your listeners and viewers have fun. You don't have to be a total goof to have a blast. I tend to take life too seriously. It's just one of those personality, firstborn, type A, Capricorn kind of things that I'm stuck with. But that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy what I'm doing. It doesn't mean I can't get laughs from my audience just from being my own crazy self. Right. So it should be fun. And if you want to start a podcast, or if you want to, up your podcast, make it fun, because otherwise it's a real drag. I can tell you, because
it's a drag.
It is like you can be a slave to your own podcast.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning and just about cry because you don't feel like doing an episode that day because it's too much going on, or you don't have support.
Right.
Or, you've run out of topics, which is just a small problem that someone can help you. But so that's what I'm just mean. Like, make it fun, make it enjoyable. Don't think of it as a performance. That's another tip. So as an actor and a performer, when I first started podcasting, which was brutal, Ruben, my first podcast, it was by invitation on a platform. And it was solo audio only.
Okay.
To me, that was really challenging as my very first podcast. One, you can't see yourself or anyone else's reactions. Two, you're having to think on the spot, and just not just leave lots of dead time.
Yeah.
And that was really, really hard. So it's like also finding the version of your podcast that will give you the greatest experience. Some people hate being on camera. No problem. Some people love being on camera. It feels like they're connecting to their audience differently. No problem. Find the one that works for you. But I will pitch video podcasts because, and here's why, anyone can be in their car and listen to a video podcast, but not anyone who can just listen but likes to watch a podcast can if it's audio only. So one more tip for thinking about your podcast. But
I always recommend that if someone has a paid YouTube subscription, which I have, which, side note, I think this is the best investment that you can make in your life, to have a paid YouTube account where you don't watch ads and you watch all the education ever to exist in humanity. You can minimize the player and just listen to it only. So a lot of the video podcasts that I like to watch, if I'm in the car, I'll just minimize it and then it's audio only. So I'm not like, being risky.
Oh yeah, same. Absolutely. And
right?
Even YouTube now has their own podcast platform.
Oh,
so
perfect. There you go.
You can upload both. You can upload your video version. You can also upload your audio track. It's two separate things, but it serves like two different audiences. And YouTube finally realized that there was a demand for the audio only. But at least if your video, they have a choice, which I think is kind of fun.
Beautiful. So where can folks connect with you? Give me your website, LinkedIn, social, contact info.
Absolutely. And I love connecting with people. If you can't tell, I'm a people person, big surprise. So yeah, on LinkedIn, message me. That will always get a response. Also, all my social platforms, which are Twitter is my biggest one, Instagram, Facebook, of course, YouTube. So whatever platform you like best, or just go directly to my website, which is annescottlin.com. And if you're listening, that's spelled ANNE. Scottlin, not land like the country, but Scottlin, ANNE. Or I'll just give you my email address. It's contact@annescottlin.com. Reach out. If there's anyone that who could really use a little help and support in getting their podcast up and running, really making a world-class splash, shout out to me. Let me know. If you have questions about your existing podcast, I'd also love to talk with you and see how I can support you. So yes, thank you, Ruben.
Yeah, beautiful. And I wanted to also share this idea that we have been so excited at Dub to support the idea of podcasting, that we have built so much technology around the ability to invite guests, to pitch yourself to shows. So if anyone's interested on how to use Dub for podcasts to either get guests or to get on shows, just leave a comments below and we'll kind of give you another sort of support video and article that we've done on this. Because if you want to pitch yourself to someone, you got to use video. You can't just be text only. They won't know who you are. It looks like a bot. You got to bring your best self, your personality, your stories, and get on shows like this with people like Ann, because it's so important. And honestly, having a podcast has changed my life. That's why I was so excited to connect with Ann. So Ann, thank you so much. I encourage people. You've got great videos on your website. You've got a lot of good content. Oh, I almost forgot. You wrote a book, and I'd like to just give a quick plug to that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and this is a great topic. Such an important. Here it is right here on this. Yeah, could you speak to this for a moment?
Yes. No, this is Live for Joy. This is just to make your life a better, happier place, whether you're a podcaster or not a podcaster. This was in the works before COVID, and it ended up coming out during COVID. I'm like, this wasn't just a COVID project. It was a passion project. I'm a writer. I've written original content my whole entire life. And I have a really popular Twitter feed with motivational, inspirational messages and art and photography. And people were like, this really needs to be a book. So I did. I basically turned a lot of that into a book. And this is a beautiful coffee table book. I just got the most meaningful message from someone a gal in Belgium 2 days ago who unsolicited just posted on Twitter You should really read this book. I read it. I keep it by my bedside and read it every night when I go to bed. And the messages and the pictures just take me to another world. And I highly recommend this book. And I was just like, oh my gosh, touching lives around the world, making it a better place. Every page has original art or photography, and then also my original content. So, yeah, it's a really fun experience. If you just makes a great present, by the way.
Okay, here I am on the Amazon checkout page, and I'm going to be actually what's really one of the things that I love about StreamYard is the ability to share my screen.
Yes.
So I can just quickly show what is on my screen right now.
Perfect.
And I'm gonna purchase this right now. So I'm super psyched about this.
Yay. Well, if you I actually make more money on the softcover book, but I will tell you that the hardcover book is absolutely worth the price because it's you feel like you've given yourself a gift. It's just such a gorgeous book. You just feel, I don't know. I'm one of those tangible visual people, so that's what I love too.
Well, you mentioned coffee table, so
there you go. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. So spread the joy, live for joy. Absolutely.
That's it. Beautiful. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you. And we'll see you at the next one.
All right. Absolutely. Thanks, Ruben. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care.